Welcome to Vintage Vibes Auto. This is the last video of the Mark 1 Golf Challenge and it's all the videos compiled into one. So this has got the building up of the Mark 1 Golf from when I picked it up, the engine rebuild, the engine wiring loom for the 20 valve turbo, engine fitment, all the parts you needed, advice, and also the intercooler setup and more. So if you're looking to build a 1.8 turbo, this is the video for you. Hope you enjoy. So a couple nights ago I was doom scrolling on Facebook Marketplace and I seen a Mark 1 Golf for free and I thought surely this can't be true. It is a project, it's not a full car, but I thought, oh well, I'll look into this. All it was listed as was a Volkswagen Golf 1987. There wasn't a lot to say about it, but having a look at the reg, it is a Mark 1 Golf GTI and it comes with a 20 valve turbo engine. What condition that's in, I don't know. I'm getting some bits together, such as wheels because it needs wheels and the person wants to get rid of it. Hopefully it's not a scam and hopefully I do get a free car out of this because this will be quite interesting to show the build progression on the channel. This is Lewis, the only guy that knows I'm getting this car at this moment in time.
Someone's going to kill you.
Do you reckon it's a scam?
Everything's a scam in life. Everything. Everything's a scam. I'm a scam.
Let's go do this. We're just coming back with the Golf on the trailer.
What a day.
What a day.
What a day.
We got it, the Mark 1 Golf. So we've got the Mark 1 Golf on the trailer. I can't exactly show you that because the light is really low at the moment, so we've got a boring shot of the motorway. We've got the Mark 1 Golf GTI. There's a 20 valve engine with it, there's a gearbox. There is pretty much the full car, minus the dashboard, and I've got to end up putting that all together. So it's going to be an interesting one because this is by far the biggest project I've ever had. So, and I don't know a lot about Mark 1 Golf, so this is going to be an interesting one. You want to help me with that?
I can paint it. Pretty much all I do is paint. I can paint it.
Welcome to hell. Apologies for there not being a lot of footage on the way to get the Golf. We actually had some trailer issues that made us 2 hours behind schedule. So when we got back, it was quite dark. It took a while to load the Golf onto the trailer. Actually, when we got back, it was near midnight, so I didn't even get to check what parts I had with this car. So I had to come back the following day to have a look. Apologies for the microphone quality when I'm using my GoPro. This is something I'm looking into. It is quite hard as my lockup's right next to a motorway, so this can sometimes give quite a lot of background noise. So we got back late last night, past midnight, and now the Mark 1 Golf is secure. It's here, it's in my name. Let's go have a look. Here it is in all its glory. Now at the moment the engine is inside the back of the car, so it's currently rear engined. When we picked it up it was just a bare shell, so everything's been ratchet strapped down, such as the doors, the wings, the bonnet. It was very much just a bare shell. I'm going to have a look at the engine and rebuild it if the 20 valve turbo isn't good enough, or maybe source a new engine. This is going to be quite a long project, so probably by the time I finish it's going to be tax and MOT exempt. It's almost a complete car apart from the dashboard's missing, the carpet's missing. I've got an engine loom, but I think it's for a Mark 4 Golf. I need to have a good look because I'm not entirely sure what's here. I've got lights, I've got the leather seats, I've got the windows, I've got a 20 valve loom just down there, and as you can see I've got the 20 valve engine lurking in that corner, which probably needs a rebuild. I've got the original Mark 1 GTI 020 gearbox, which was attached to the 20 valve turbo. The clutch is also included from the 020 gearbox. There's no dashboard and the window glass is loose, so that's something I need to sort out. I'm going to get it all back together. It's going to be quite a long job, but I've got time on my hands, so it doesn't really matter. At some point it must have lived in Cornwall. It's had 14 owners and I'm its 15th owner, so it's probably lived all around the UK. As you can see there's no real rusting around the windscreen. There's little bits of surface rust, but I can sort that out, it's not a big deal. Normally on the Mark 2s they rust around here around the windscreen. I assume they do that on the Mark 1 as well. The car's got bits of every colour. It's got red on the boot. It's been roller painted blue at some point. There's bits of yellow, but I think the original colour is this grey blue here. So let's have a look under the bonnet then. The strut towers look quite good condition. I can't see any rust. This must have been for the 20 valve gearbox or for something to do with the 20 valve. I'm not entirely sure. The brake booster is disconnected, but it does come with the car, so this is one of the first things I'll be sorting out. You can't really see much rust on the legs, so that's pretty good. Now I've been told this has been stored outside bare metal for a couple of years, but it looks alright. It must have had some bigger wheel arches at some point, because it looks like they've been drilled in. But having a look around, it looks like it's held up well over 37 years. There's been some patches of welding done at the end of the sills, but it actually really looks alright. There's not a lot of rust. At some point it must have had a really big exhaust because of the cutout. It did come with an exhaust, but it would make sense because it had the 20 valve engine. There's a little bit of a patch there at the end of the sill, but overall it's not too bad. There's a couple of tiny little rust holes on the floor, but it's nothing I can't sort. I did have to sort my own wheels, so the wheels from this are actually stolen off the Mark II GTD. Now I spent some time removing stuff from all the car to see what parts I had and check the rust. The passenger floor pan looks really good and nothing required, but the driver's floor pan does have a couple of little holes in that I need to sort. Once everything was cleared out, I thought I'd have a look at the 20 valve engine and find out what it was. It's an ARY, which would have been originally a 210 brake horsepower engine out of an Audi S3. Thankfully the engine turns over nice and freely. As you can see from the parts that I've got most of the exterior parts and I have some of the interior parts as well. The roof being the main one because the roof can then make the car watertight. I got the gearbox, the starter motor, the stainless steel exhaust, enough to get the engine in the car and get it turning over. I've also got a Mark IV engine loom and I've got a Mark IV interior loom as well, so I could get the whole car running as a Mark IV Golf. I thought I had a Mark I interior loom, but it turns out I don't, so this could be something I need to source later to get all the Mark I electronics working properly. What we're going to do now is we are going to roller brush it, which is a war crime really. We. Now watch this time lapse. Okay, first things first, before I start laying down this amazing paint job that I'm about to unleash, I've got to start taking bits off like the wings and the bumper and whatever else I can find. As I mentioned in the previous video, around the window there is some surface rust, so I'm just going to start sanding that down to get some of the surface rust off and treat it. I've not shown you all of this in the video because you don't want to watch a boring time lapse of me sanding a bit of metal down. Look at me go, I'm laying down the landlord special with the brush. I know it's a crime, but it's almost freezing and it's going to save the bodywork for winter. So for a quick update, it's all painted. I hate the way it looks, it really bugs me, but now it's protected for winter. I've left the bonnet black because it's already painted, and I've left this wing sanded because it's not going to get rusty because it's still already painted. Inside it's still black because it's already painted, so it doesn't matter. And that door is now painted. I could have spat the paint on better. It's truly a crime. It's better than having no metal, but roller brushing is pretty crap. I would never do this again. I've made an absolute mistake. It's got more runs than my pants, and I've got IBS.
It's a necessary evil. It's to make it winterproof, not look good.
This is going to look really good if I close my eyes. For the people watching, it looks to have been painted with either a roller brush or even a paintbrush anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But
it's not going to go on the road like this either.
No, it's not going to be going on the road like this. But this still hurts me. I know people are going to give me crap for this, but you know what? I've done it now. I've done it.
I wish I could have run that quick.
So now the next segment, I'm going to start putting bits back together to make it watertight. This door was a little bit of a pain. We didn't have a lot of bolts for the whole entire car, so I'm having to use a load of my parts that I've got and mishmash bolts to fit.
Never mind, you can open it from there. The bit was going to go to the passenger side, but apparently you can just push down this bit and it does it.
Yeah, it's looking a bit more like a car now. It's partially all back together now. I've just put the bumper on to make it look a bit better. But the paint job looks alright from 10 foot away. It's still not great, but it's okay.
Better than what it was.
Next time I've got to make it watertight. I'm also missing this door. Once Anthony's done his work in magic to help me get the door back on, then I will start making it watertight. Now this door, the bolts had sheared off in place. They must have been on a long time because they were very rusty. And I thought by putting a nut on them and welding them in place, I thought I'd be able to get them off. But I wasn't as fortunate and I had to go back to step one. Anthony can fix my door hinge problem as well.
Yeah, by throwing it in the bin. So how much is it to buy a new one of these?
It's £15 each, so 30 quid for two.
I'm hoping if I put this in the Bridgeport at work, assuming work would let me, I don't think work will see this video. I'm hoping, because it's a through thread, put a drill in smaller than the thread. If I'm lucky, maybe it will grab it and send it through. If not, I'll have to drill it out. We can either helicoil it, which then we'd have to buy a helicoil kit, which is effort, or what if I just tapped it bigger? Would you need it to be?
No, that's fine, you could do that, yeah.
Well, yeah, that'll be either the case then, is either drill it through and I just knock it all out and then just re-tap it, or drill it out, drill it bigger. So if it's M8, make it M10.
Lovely. Look at him go. My absolute sweet cheese, my rotten soldier. I love that guy. Working on work time for my car parts. A disclaimer, if work's watching, it was after hours.
There's a thread inside of here now. Not all the material's out, so there's what's left of the screw. There's threads on the other side. So I've probably used a tap to push out the other threads, and that should salvage this one, potentially. Also, I don't know if you can see, let me get a good light on there. And there you go. There's some of the threads.
Look at that, lots of overspray, lots of old Rust-Oleum paint. And I tell you what, you know what time it is? It's time for the Landlord Special. Yeehaw! It's actually quite refreshing to do this because all my other cars have great paintwork and it's nice to have a rough car. I could just do whatever I want, to be honest. It's great. Okay, so now it's the next day and it's dried and I have to put a couple layers on it. I'm going to start putting stuff back together, such as the front bumper. I put the number plates back on to tidy it up a little bit and put his eyes back in his head because it's got no face at the moment. So it needs to be looking more like a Mark 1 Golf. I don't like my lockup to look like a breaker's yard, so I'm putting everything back on externally, just so it looks nice and tidy. Bolting that replica GTI duckbill rear valance back on. The last thing I'm missing from the front, minus the engine internals, is a grille, a GTI grille. So the front of the car is mostly together now. I just need to find a grille. A duckbill splitter to go in place as well. It's starting to look like a car again. The rear bumper didn't need painting because that didn't have any excess paint or overspray on. I am looking at getting some red pinstripe for this to make it look a bit more tidier. It does actually have the chrome pinstripe underneath, but I'm going to do that for next summer. So I've got the chrome inserts that look quite nice and tidy. I think the GTI cabriolets had that on from standard. I found putting the rear backlights an absolute pain because the screws kept falling out into the back of the light, which is an absolute pain. Whoever designed that in Germany, I hate you. I brought a fresh lock set for the car because the car didn't really have any keys to go with it or locks. So I like to make my stuff secure so no one can get in it. The back bumper and the lights have been put in, the number plate. It's looking alright. One of the lights is still smoked and one of them I've already cleaned. But I plan on putting them back to standard.
That's a good one.
Nice. Yep.
And that's the shit one.
They're still gonna work.
If they'll still work, because he's slightly off centre.
I love it when you bring me gifts. Go on, do the honours.
Hinges installed.
Whoa, man of the hour. Perfect. Thankfully I managed to find some rear window mechanisms for just £20, but what I didn't realise when I was fitting these is you're supposed to put the window seals in first, but I'm a bit of an idiot, so I didn't even think to put them in. The windows are in. The rear door cards are on. The roof is bolted back in place. I just need to sort the rear tensioner cable out now and get these bits on. For another update, the roof is now on. I've just got the tensioner cable to do, which is just this bit here, and then it should fit. I left all of this out in the video. I didn't do a time lapse of it just because I didn't know what I was really doing, and I also didn't want to waste your time as a viewer. But yep, it's all back on.
You'd waste my time though, wouldn't you?
It's also just like a Beetle now. Rear engined. Whoops. The roof is now back on and working. I've got actually quite a lot of the interior. The A, B and C pillars, I'm going to put some fabric over and then put some adhesive to stick them down. I'm going to make some for that. I still need to find a dashboard. I need some clips to latch the roof down. That's all I need for the roof. The interior is looking all right. I've got the roof. The roof goes over now. I mean, I can't clip it in place because I don't have the latches, but it's looking all right. It's coming together. I'm quickly learning that parts for the Mark 1 Golf are actually really expensive or really cheap, and there's nowhere in the middle. So the rear tensioner cable I actually lost. I've found it now to fit the roof, but a new one is actually £100 to buy on eBay. I thought it'd be a lot cheaper than that. Luckily I found it. I do have now a grill, so let's put that on. The last thing to complete the Mark 1 Golf space. Facebook Marketplace has come in handy with this car. As much as it's a pain, I found some absolute bargains on there, and I've got a lot of things I couldn't find on eBay. I know, naughty me using no axle stands. Let's pretend there's one out of shot. Look at that menacing exhaust over there. Look at that. Goes with the smoke lights. Look at that sticking out. I think it's happy to see me. To finish the look of the outside, I found some mirrors. The driver's side one was missing, but I brought both the drivers and passengers. They were painted in a nice metallic black. The roof now almost fits. It fits on. I've just got to wait for these roof latches to arrive because I don't have any roof latches at the moment. So once I've fitted these, I can leave the car cover off then and just leave it for winter. I don't really like having car covers on. Not that I've got to worry about this car with this car's terrible paintwork, but I still don't want to keep leaving car covers on. And here we have it. The Mark 1 Golf externally is complete anyway, with the grills, the bumpers, the exhaust. The roof is now fitted. There's a lot of the interior back in. The seats are back in parcel shelf. The engine's in the back, unfortunately. That'll be for another video. There's some stuff I've done behind the scenes, like fitting all this trim, all of this trim. There's still bits I need to do, but I'm not going to bore you with that. The next episode, I assume, will be fitting a dash, fitting the electronics, or fitting the engine. It depends what I get to first. It's looking quite tidy now. It might not be perfect, but it's a free Mark 1 Golf GTI Cabriolet. You know, I can't complain at that. It's all ready for winter. There's little bits I'm going to sort, like getting the brake booster back on. I might leave that for the next video. At the moment, it's not going anywhere. I got this car on the 7th of October, and after that, it sat on the trailer for a week because I couldn't get it off a loan. What I then needed to do was to get it watertight before the clocks changed, which would mean it would start getting dark about 4 PM, which would leave me no time to do it after work. So on the 19th of October, I started painting it, and by the 26th, I was done. So this has been all done over 7 days, doing it after work and on Saturdays and Sundays to get it watertight for winter. Well, I guess that was supposed to be the end, but to be fair, I got bored. I took the black off the chrome grille, and then I thought, you know what, it would look nice with some nice wheels on instead of rusty steel wheels. So here we are. Now I'm going to leave you some royalty-free music because YouTube will absolutely destroy my bumhole if I play any other thing apart from royalty-free music. Okay, so let's get into it then. When I first got the Mark 1 Golf project, I needed to keep everything dry. The first thing I needed to do was put the hood on, but that was a bit of a mistake because I put the engine in the boot, and with the hood on, it was really hard to get out. So it was quite a struggle getting this out. I got the B pillar there, hiding a little bit of cheeky crack. Sorry about that. If you're wondering why we didn't just use the engine crane, because it was in the boot, we couldn't get the engine out without having the hood halfway up. And also, someone has kindly blocked me in at my lockup, and I don't know whose car that is. So it's a bit of a struggle getting my car out. It doesn't look like it though, because the GoPro is a wide angle lens. If you do have any questions about fitting a 20 valve turbo into a Mark 1 Golf, please let me know and I'll try and answer the best I can. This is the first time for me, but I have done quite a bit of research. There are many other ways to do this, but this is the way I've chosen. Okay, so now it's day 2. I didn't do any filming last night because it was dark at 4 PM. I thought I'd show you what I've got for the 20 valve. I should have everything now to build it and put it in the car. What I didn't show you on camera is that I fitted the gearbox mounts. These didn't have any bushes in after they were powder coated, so I've pressed the bushes in. I've got a nice new alternate to put on because it didn't have one. I've got 3 turbos to pick from. These 2 are AGU KO3 and this one is KO3S, which is the one I'll be putting on the car. I've got the BAM inlet manifold and charge pipe. I've got a Tuning Technics deimmobilized ECU which has been remapped. I will be getting a new map put on that because it's for a KO4, and I've got all the KO3S/KO3 set up, so I'll be getting it remapped. But for now, to test if it runs, I will just be using that. I've got a variety of new parts as well, such as oil cooler, oil filter, a new timing belt, exhaust studs. I brought a full new gasket kit, including head gasket and oil seals, in case I need any. I probably won't use all of them, but it's there if I need it. I've also got, because the engine is bare, I've got the alternator bracket, the oil pump. I've got my exhaust manifold. I've got the conversion 1.8T or 1.9 engine mount, which is nice little bit. I've got the 020 flywheel and clutch. That's a new clutch, so that'll be quite good. I have all the oil feed lines and electrics for the engine. I've got all the engine loom as well for the 20 valve, but I don't have it in this video. It's at the Mark 1 Golf in the boot, and the tip for the turbo. I should have pretty much everything I need. What the next step is, we need to clean this filthy 20 valve because it's very oily. It does turn over freely and all the valves look good, but I've not had a chance to look at it properly. I know that it works and runs, but it could do with a bit of TLC, so I'm going to be building it back up. I'm going to be putting the proper timing belt on, because on a Mark 1 conversion, this is where the engine mount goes, so this is going to be going. So no more hydraulic engine mount. I would be replacing it with this here. This is an ABF 16 valve Mach 3 Golf timing belt tensioner, but it's not hydraulic. You just manually adjust it. Unlike this one here, which automatically adjusts, it's on a piston, and we can't have that because, like I said, the engine mount needs to go here. So that needs to go. But there is a solution to it, so it's not a problem. As this video is quite lengthy, I won't be talking all the way through it, but I will tell you about torque specs and anything I think is useful to know. So as a 23-year-old engine, it was quite oily, it was quite messy, so I needed to clean like the mating surfaces for the gaskets, give it a clean with some brake cleaner because I reckon that the rocker cover or the oil cap was leaking, and over the years and years it's created a horrible mess. So that's the first start for me to rebuilding this engine. Seeing as the rocker cover was off, I thought I'd check the top end to see for any cam wear and to make sure the hydraulic tensioner was okay and to make sure there was no slack in the chain and just to see the overall healthiness of the engine. As you can see, the engine is a nice golden brown, so it's probably been looked after most of its life. There's a little bit of mess near the cams, but I'm not worried about that. If you're wondering why the chain tensioner keeps dropping, that's because it's ran on oil pressure. The 20V rocker covers always get quite a lot of gunk on them over the years from like the engine sludge, so it's always best to clean this if you're taking the rocker cover off. I thought I'd paint it while it was off. I painted it with the Rust-Oleum, the same colour as the Mark 1 Golf, although I found this a bit of a regret really because I should have just left it silver. It looked quite tidy. For the best results, to avoid any runs, I heated the can of Rust-Oleum up first and I heated the rocker cover up. Okay, so now that everything's nice and clean, we can start putting bits back together. So I first started with the spark plugs, which is set at 22 foot-pounds. I then did the oil filter housing, which is 11 foot-pounds torque, and then a 90 degrees turn on the 4 bolts. I then fitted the knock sensors. The knock sensors are torqued to 15 foot-pounds torque and should be torqued down because this can affect the engine running. The crankshaft position sensor was also changed and torqued to 7 foot-pounds. It can be a bit of a pain to get to because it's behind the oil filter and the radiator, so it can be quite tricky to get to if it's in the car, especially if you fit into a Mark II or Mark III Golf, because one of the engine mounts is in the way. The torque specs for the alternator bracket are 38 foot-pounds, while the belt tensioner is 18 foot-pounds, and the cam position sensor that I did at the top was 7 foot-pounds of torque. The top and lower bolts for the alternator are set at 22 foot-pounds. There was a slight mistake there, so the alternator actually goes on first before the belt tensioner, because if you put the belt tensioner on first like I did, you can't put the top bolt of the alternator in, so remember to put the alternator on first. As for the oil cooler gasket and the oil filter gasket, I put a little bit of oil on there for it to seal good. The 2 thermostat bolts are set to 7 foot-pounds torque. Just make sure everything's nice and clean before you fit it to give you a proper seal. The next bit I did was the rocker cover and added a little RTV sealant around the edges, just a little smidge because they sometimes can leak out of there. The rocker cover is set to 7.5 foot-pounds torque. This is tightened down gently and done in a star pattern until it's nice and bedded down, and then it's torqued to spec. The next is the coolant housing, which I torqued to 7 foot-pounds of torque. Then I also put the coolant lines on and around the engine, as well as the oil breather system. There's not a lot of oil breather pipes left. I've left them removed. I've done the basic oil breather line, so it goes from near the oil filter all the way to the rocker cover. The next to go on is the turbo, which is a KO3S, which is a bit of an upgrade over the KO3. You can get a little bit more brake horsepower over it, and you don't have to change the downpipe and the exhaust manifold to fit a KO3S. So that's quite a nice, easy, simple upgrade. The turbo goes on first because you can't access the coolant and oil feed lines because of the exhaust manifold. You won't be able to get them off if not. Then secondly, the exhaust manifold goes on. There's some tricky bits to get to, which I'll show you in a minute with a close-up, because they can be really tricky to get to while they're in the engine bay. Now the turbo's gone on. The turbo has to go on first because of the oil feed line and the water feed line, because you can't put that on when the manifold's on. It's actually quite a tight fit. Once the manifold is on, there's a really awkward bolt to get to, which, if I can just show you, is just down there. Probably a bugger if the engine's fitted to the car. Luckily, it ain't. So let's get on with it. Now if you've got a sharp eye, you've probably noticed that all the nuts on the exhaust manifold don't match. This is because I ordered the incorrect amount, but they are now changed. And for the exhaust manifold, you want to torque these down to 21 foot-pounds and do it in a star pattern to make sure the exhaust manifold goes on nice and evenly. To make the turbo to the exhaust manifold, I had to loosen the lower turbo mount and then push the turbo forward for it to fit. These are torqued to 25 foot-pounds torque, and remember to use the correct tensile strength, as you could break these or they could loosen. The intake manifold and fuel rail were all torqued down to 7.5 foot-pounds of torque. When I got this engine, it was a bare engine, so I had to use all new bolts and washers. Remember to make sure all the injectors are correctly spaced, because if not they can leak fuel. The Mach 4 oil pressure sensors don't work, so you need to have the Mach 1, 2 or 3 oil pressure sensors, so the blue and the white, which manages the low and the high oil pressure. And I took the throttle body down to 7.5 foot-pounds of torque. should come off. You got into cars, things get lifted on over the course of years and years, and it's so frustrating. Like, this should just come off, but it isn't coming off. And even with a hit from a hammer, it isn't actually coming off.
It seized like my assets when I fell into financial ruin.
There we go. So right now I'm showing a friend how to change a timing belt. I first start with marking up the crankshaft and the camshaft. I'm also showing him how to change a belt the easy way. I mark a couple of different points on the belt to show it's going exactly in the same place, and I mark those points on the new belt as well, so I know the new belt is going in the exact location of the old belt. I know this is not sort of the correct way to do this, but for the purpose of learning, I thought I'd show him this way. The marks on both timing belts are also good for checking that the new belt is the same as the old belt, to make sure we've got no extra teeth or fewer teeth. It's actually stamped 12, so I'm guessing it was replaced in 2012. So this water pump and timing belt could be about 13 years old, so good job we are replacing it. It looks fine, but it's a faff if it starts leaking or if this plastic propeller breaks off.
It's easier to do it now.
Yeah, we'll have to take the timing belt off again. I made sure all the surface areas are clean for the new water pump. I also fitted it with some water resistant silicone, like only a little smidge, just so it wouldn't leak, just as an extra precaution.
What is the torque spec?
11 foot-pounds. There we go, that one clicked. As you can see, if you do that, you shouldn't crimp a new one, but look, nothing there, no cracks. But then this one, all you have to do is squeeze it in. You can see all those like little hairline cracks.
It's all perished.
Yeah, all that perishing. That is when the time belt will snap. This is about 13 years old. This hasn't been done in a very long time. This should be done every 4 years or 60 to 80,000 miles. So this was on borrowed time. So it's been absolute shambles tonight. So I was supposed to teach Anthony how to change a time belt and water pump, but the new timing belt is 2 teeth longer than the old timing belt, even though it's for a 20 valve turbo, and the engine mount, which is actually used 20 valve engine mount from Mark 1 conversion, doesn't fit on this engine very well. These two bolt on fine, but because it's a custom made mount, I can only fit the third bolt in if it's at an angle like this, which isn't going to fit, so I need to file down this hole a little bit more. Nothing goes to plan with cars. Nothing goes to plan. You look on YouTube and you're like, oh, look at that, he makes it so easy. Look at that flawless time lapse. So unfortunately with the timing belt, we did have to put a stop to that for the night and do some other things instead. So the next thing I had to do while I was waiting for the timing belt to come along, I did the sump and I cleaned out the oil pickup feed. When undoing the sump, there's also some really tricky bolts. In fact, 2 tricky bolts to get out, which I'll show you now. 2 really tricky bolts to get to on the sump. I couldn't show you this with the GoPro, so I've had to use my phone. But they are this one here, if you can see, and especially this one here. You need a wobble socket to do that, to get to them, because it's such a pain in the bottom. If you use a normal socket, it will slip. They are 10mm bolts, and I believe you can use an Allen key insert for the middle bit as well if you're struggling with those 2 sump bolts. So I've just took the sump off. It doesn't look too bad. You know, it's nice and golden brown. I think it's probably been a looked after engine. The oil pickups tend to block on these. I can see some muck or silicone there, so I'm going to get that out now and tidy the sump up. If I'd never checked, I wouldn't have known. We also found something in the sump. So this is an aftermarket sump. I thought it was, well, I can double check now, there's no VW logos. And the dead giveaway is that there's an old oil line gasket in the bottom of the sump. Someone must have forgot about that when they were changing it. It's a good job I took the sump off to have a look, because I wouldn't have known about that, and that could have got sucked up into the engine and perhaps destroyed part of the engine. So I'm lucky I took it apart, because I wasn't going to bother taking it apart because the sump wasn't leaking. But I thought, oh, I'll have a look at the oil pickup and see if that's blocked up, because they do block up. It's quite common on a 20 valve turbo for them to block up, and being this an aftermarket sump, some of the silicon might have fell off into the sump and gone up into the oil pickup line. As you can see here, a nice big chunk of silicon I've just pulled out. Stuff like that blocks your oil feed. It might be silicon, it might be gunk from the engine, from not changing the engine oil frequently enough. Now that the sump is clean and the main surfaces are clean, it's time to put the RTV silicon on and bond it together. This isn't the best time lapse here, but you don't want to put a lot of silicon on. What I did after I applied the silicon was I rolled it flat with a bottle and removed any excess silicon. You really don't need a lot. If you get too much on, it will all spread out and then bits will fall off while the sump is on, and it will get sucked up into your oil feed pipe. There are gaskets available for this if you fancied a safer option. I didn't have one to hand on the day, so I didn't use one. The sump is torqued to 11 foot-pounds of torque. I didn't know this when I was putting it back on, but the crankshaft seal bolts, the threads were pulled out, so I later had to replace that, which I'll be doing later on in the video. As you can see, rolling the RTV silicon on and cleaning the excess off created a really tiny little bit that was squeezed out, which will also be the same inside the sump as well. So hopefully nothing ends up falling into the oil pickup pipe. The crankshaft seal was torqued to 11 foot-pounds of torque. The sealant that you put on, I wasn't sure how to put this on, but having a quick look online, there wasn't much information, but I put a little bead around between the sump and the engine block, and then I applied it to the base of the crankshaft seal. Okay, so now it's been a couple of days for us and we're back to the timing belt again. This original timing belt was 2 teeth out. What I didn't realise at the time is that there's 2 different timing belts for the 1.8 turbo, and the longer one is for the Passat engines because they have an external water pump that doesn't run on a timing belt, like the older Mark III and Mark II Golfs. So now we have a proper timing belt that actually fits. So We don't need this one anymore. The difference is the long one is 152 times 25, which is slightly thicker as well, and the one we need is 150 times by 23, so it's a little bit narrower, but it is it's a perfect match for this. Doesn't always sit perfect, so that's in time. This is somewhat in time, but then this doesn't align. Look, push it in.
Yep.
I'm out on the bottom by a tooth. Look, doesn't match up.
No, is that me?
That one and that one, that one and that one. There's a tooth out, but you wouldn't know that unless you'd tried it. So, but now I've marked them all up, I know that I'm a little tooth out. So I'll try again and get it to match the old belt exactly. I had to make a stud to fit the ABF tensioner. Now, I just kept it on for the video to show where it went, but this has now been replaced. I got it too short and the nut didn't fit, and also it was an exhaust manifold nut which I wouldn't use, but just for the purposes of showing you in the video. Click.
Click. You're not meant to reduce the torque to make it click.
With the belt, I was told when I was learning how to do a time belt that I was told with diesels it's a 45-degree twist to check the tension, but with petrols it's a 90 degrees twist to make sure you've got the correct tension on your belt at the longest part, so that's 90 degrees twist. So that's alright, nice and tensioned. Now what we'll do is we'll turn it over a couple of times and see if it's in time. The ABF tensioner is also torqued to 33 foot-pounds, but torque it up in increments at a time in case it strips the threads out of your aluminium head. I was really careful doing this because I was cautious of that. Also with the ABF tensioner, it goes slightly further in on the block than the original tensioner, so you need to space this out with washers. I use 2 washers to space mine out. The crankshaft balancer was torqued to 22 foot-pounds of torque. I'm going to say it more than once in the video, but the alternator belt you need is 6PK 925 and it fits perfectly. I kept this on to show you, but I actually hammered the clutch pressure plate on, but I was wrong doing that because none of the bolts would fit in place. I then had to prise the pressure plate off because I couldn't get it off. So what I did was I applied copper grease to the pressure plate and to the crank and slowly bolted it down in a star-shaped pattern so pressure was applied equally so it fits on properly and none of the bolts were cross-threaded. This clutch is different to like a conventional clutch because the pressure plate goes on first instead of the flywheel. I then added Loctite to the pressure plate and I torqued it down to 22 foot-pounds, which is also included with 1/4 of a turn after the 22 foot-pounds of torque. This being an O2O clutch, I couldn't use my clutch alignment tool, so I had to line it up by eye and my camera, as you can probably see in the video. Then the flywheel is torqued down to 15 foot-pounds of torque. I also mocked everything up and the top dead center of the flywheel. It's really important that you tighten down these in a star pattern a little bit at a time, because if you try and do one all the way down to 15 foot-pounds, it's probably going to break because of the amount of pressure on the clutch pressure plate springs. And that about wraps it up. I'm just fitting the O2O gearbox now to see what bolts fit and see if the clutch is perfectly in line. Thankfully it is, as it was just done by eye. For the gearbox bolts that I've just used bolts that had lying around, which were from old conversions such as 0.2J gearboxes, 0.2O gearboxes and 0.2A gearboxes. They're all quite the same, they're all quite similar, so you can mishmash them together. Stay around for the end of the video now it's finished, because I do talk about what you can bolt to your Mach 1 with the 20 valve turbo and any questions I needed to search up for that I couldn't find on YouTube. I don't talk about electrics and wiring diagrams though. This is something I need to research into further. I don't want to tell you misinformation. So there you have it. You've watched me externally rebuild a 20 valve turbo in my garage in the middle of January in the cold. I've done this over a course of 4 weeks, so it's not been continuous, although it might look like it because I wore literally the same clothes every single time I've been in here. If you wanted to put a 20 valve engine into your Mark 1 Golf, this is probably the easiest way to do it. You can use the existing Mark 1 Golf GTI gearbox and GTI clutch, although it's not the preferred method. I'm just doing this because it comes free with the Mark 1 Golf. With the 0.2O gearbox, you can also keep the 0.2O gearbox mount and one of the 0.2O engine mounts, which is not here at the moment, and starter motor, which is a massive help. You also need these two sensors. Now, I did a Mark 3 Golf 20 valve conversion, and this is what you need. You need the white sensor and the blue, the high and low oil pressures. You probably already have this on a Mark 1, but I'm going from having no sensors at all. So this was a little bit of a guess from my Mark 3 conversion. You need a new alternator belt, which is 6PK925. It fits perfectly. I had to make a little adjustment here for the engine mount, as it's so close to the timing belt and covers. So hopefully this should fit the Mark 1 mount. You've also got the timing belt tensioner, which is from a 16 valve ABF engine or similar engines. Mine was actually from a 1.6 turbo diesel SB engine from a Mark 2 Golf that I had lying around. Also, what will help is if you went 0.2O gearbox, again not the preferred method, you can have the cable clutch from the GTI, and if it's an AGU engine, you've also got cable throttle as well. If you used any other 20 valve turbos, this will be vacuum, and you'll have to install all the hydraulic clutch lines, which can be a bit of a pain. This isn't the preferred method. There's other better ways, there's other better 20 valves, but for ease and doing it quickly, you want to use an AGU for the cable throttle and an 0.2O gearbox for cable clutch. You have less to install. With the 0.2O gearbox, you also keep the original gear linkages, whereas if you went to a 0.2A or 0.2J gearbox, which is out of the Mark 4 or the Mark 3 Golf and others, you'd have to install the cable linkages as well, which match with the box. Whereas this, it's already from the Mark 1 GTI, so it fits straight away perfect. All you'd have to change is the engine and bolt the gearbox side of the engine onto the 20 valve. It all fits. Not all the gearbox bolts fit. It is slightly different, but you've got a good 5 bolts you can put in. You've got the 2 for the starter motor, the 2 for the top of the gearbox, and you have 1 around the back of the engine which will fit. But not all of them will fit, as long as you're happy with that. Drive shaft cups can also be the same for a 0.2A or 0.2J box, depending what you get. You want to have 100mm drive shaft cups. Those are pretty common in Volkswagen. So this 0.2O box in particular is from an E-Reg, so 1987 Mark 1 Cabriolet GTI, and at that time they had 100mm drive cups, which is great because a lot of 0.2J and 0.2A gearboxes have that, as well as 0.2O gearboxes. So those are the drive shafts and drive shaft cups you want. Apparently earlier Mark 1 Golf GTIs had 90mm cups, which would probably be a bit of a problem for fitting if you had an O2J or O2A gearbox. Even an O2O replacement would probably have 100mm cups. That's what they're pretty common in. So here we are about to put the engine in the Mark 1 Golf. Surprisingly, this 20 valve engine fits in surprisingly well for saying it was never designed to fit in this car. There's a couple of things I'm going to tell you to make your life a bit easier if you're doing this conversion, which are: the brake booster can actually stay on. You don't need to remove that, but you must remove the tip from the turbo, because I left the tip on and I couldn't get it in properly, as you will see later on in this time lapse. There is a lower gearbox engine mount which is attached to the chassis near the gearbox tunnel, and I didn't realise it actually come off the car, so make sure you unbolt that before, because it can be a little bit difficult to get in. The engine doesn't sit right, as you'll see in the time lapse. Whatever downpipe you have fabricated for this, make sure it's in the car first, because if not, it can be a real pig to get on. I didn't want to risk that, so I put it in first with the exhaust attached. There's actually not a lot of clearance in there, so I found that even though I had the downpipe in and the engine in, it was still quite hard to get both of them attached, having to rock the engine back and forth to get it to fit properly. For the engine side mount, you don't actually have a lot of room, so it's really difficult to get the bolt and nut through, so just be careful when doing that. There is room, you can do it, but careful you don't drop anything into your timing belt side of your engine. I'll show a short video on this soon to show you the clearance issues. Make sure you have the drive shafts in the correct place roughly first before you fit them. My drive shafts were hanging down, and this made it a bit of a problem for me to get them in later. Apart from that though, the engine fits surprisingly well, like it all bolts together as it should. I'm using an O2O gearbox as I've previously mentioned. I'm surprised how well it fit. It actually didn't take long to put it in the engine bay. This is what I mean, there really isn't a lot of space in here, but I had to cut out my timing belt cover a little bit to get it to fit, but I didn't want to get rid of it completely. There's also more video of looking around the engine bay to show like how much room you have to play with. What I'm going to be doing is fitting these fake split rims, the Lenzo Specials, to this. I was going to fit them on the Mark II, but I kind of like how the Mark II looks with these on. The first thing I'm going to do is bleed the rear brakes and then the front, and I'm going to fit the wheels at the same time. Then what I'm going to do is connect the drive shafts to the gearbox and then the gear linkages, so I don't have to have a plank of wood at the front of the car all the time. Now that the engine's in, the main objective in this video is to sort of just get everything working so that when I get the conversion loom, I can just plug it in and hopefully start the engine up. That would be in a perfect world, but that's likely to not be reality. So what's just happened is when we went to bleed the brakes, the nipple has broke. But also if Anthony puts his foot on the floor, oh, it actually does sort of. Put it again?
It is.
Nah, the cylinder is probably seized as well as the nipple, so that's something to change in the future. I don't have that right now for this video, but it will be changed soon. The rest of the car though is actually bled. This was actually the last one to do. It was out of order because you should do passenger back, driver's back, passenger front, and then the driver's front to bleed all the brakes correctly, because the master cylinder is normally near the driver's side front near the brake pedal. This being a Mark 1, it's the opposite side, it's on the passenger side, so that's slightly wrong. You can undo your passenger side drive shaft from the engine bay, but the driver's side drive shaft, you have to be underneath it to undo it. The drive shafts have now been connected. I'm sorry there wasn't much footage of this, but this has been an absolute pain in the bottom to get on. Basically, I put the engine in first and the drive shafts were hanging down. So then there wasn't enough clearance to get the drive shafts back into the drive shaft cups, so I had to loosen the engine mounts and one side of the wishbone to get these in. This side, the passenger side, wasn't too bad, as I just rocked the engine back and forth and got it in. but the driver's side, I had to take one of the wishbone bolts out, pull the hub out, and then I was able to get the drive shaft in. Also, if you're doing this engine conversion, there is a gearbox bracket right at the back, right near your linkages here, and it's bolted to the floor. I didn't realise it was bolted to the floor, so I just plonked the engine in, and it didn't fit very well, and it was hard to get things to fit in place. But now I know that. I wish I'd done that first and detached the gearbox bracket, because then it would have fitted in the engine bay a lot easier. The drive shafts are now bolted back up, but the problem I have now is this. There's a huge amount of resistance, and this, I wasn't sure what it was straight away. I thought maybe I've done something wrong with the drive shaft, but let me show you. They actually scrape on this part of the caliper, which has been scraping on the wheel. So what I need to do is I need to file this bit here down so they fit flush. It's only a little bit, it won't affect the braking, but it's better than it grinding away the wheels. So the throttle cable you need is actually from a Mark II Golf 1.3 carb engine, and I'll put the link in the description if you need to buy one of these. The only thing is with this throttle cable is it doesn't actually fit in the grommet hole properly, so I've got to find a solution for this. Make sure you get the downpipe on first before you fit the engine. The downpipe is really difficult to get on, so make sure that is in the car before you put the engine in. As you can see, it's very twisty and bendy. Trying to fit the top of the exhaust downpipe to the actual turbo was really difficult while it was in the car. To get the downpipe fitted to the turbo, I had to release the lower engine mounts and rock the engine back and forth until it could fit. I actually had another person helping me to get the downpipe on it. Okay, so I've just fitted the clutch cable. I'm not sure what's the best way, but for now I'll put it around the bulkhead and then down into here. Now I'm just going to do the clutch side of it, and we should have a working clutch then. I'm fitting a Mark I Golf clutch cable because it's what come with the car, but I've heard you can fit a Mark II and Mark III Golf clutch cable, as these are automatic and adjust over time as the clutch wears. The clutch, the accelerator and the brake pedal have all been sorted. The next thing to do is gear linkages. I've just seen that this selector here, if I just put it in reverse, I think that does, it fits in place. But then if I take it out of reverse, it's hitting on the turbo. And kind of panicked me for a bit, because I thought, you know, everyone says you can fit an 020 gearbox, but then now this is rubbing on the turbo. I can't get out of reverse. For now, I'm going to have to go and have a rethink about the gear selector. I think it's because the engine isn't mounted properly. It needs to be pushed down more. It needs to be pushed down more to actually get the gear selector to fit in place. Now I'm just connecting all the grounds and the battery cables that I can see to see if I can get any signs of life from the engine or the ignition. It's not a massive detail, but I think the minor details make quite a difference. I mean, when you get a new car, you have to put new number plates on it, right? I mean, get rid of the old, in with the new. Doing a bit of framing, putting nice new shiny parts on to distract you from the horrible paint. Really though, when you see a nice car on the road and it's got disgusting old tatty number plates, you think, do you know what, they're inexpensive to replace. You could just change them for about 12 quid on eBay. Today we're going to be looking at the 1.8 turbo wiring for the Mark I Golf. This is a CE1 fuse box. There's other bits that I'm going to be doing in the background, but I'm going to skip them because you're all going to be here for the wiring. The other unrelated bits like sorting my fuel tank out, I'm just not really going to show it because you're just going to want to look at the wiring and you want to know how I've done it. So I'm going to do it bits and bobs and mention things that you probably find helpful. The guide that I'm using is online, it's free, and it's going to be in the description. It's by a guy called Rub Johnny. It's very in-depth and it's really easy to understand. If you look over it a couple of times, it goes through every little detail. Like, the guy hasn't skipped anything, so it's really, really handy. This has taken me quite a long time to do, to make the loom. Probably about 30 hours of just reading it over and over and over again, referencing it, and just splicing wires together. There's a lot of both looms that you cut out, but I could talk more about this later as I go over it, so it makes more sense. So this is the engine loom, and it pretty much, you leave it intact. The only thing I've messed with is the coil packs, because it's the AGU loom. It's an ME 3.8. All of the other looms are ME 7.5. So it means the wiring loom is different. It may look the same, but it is different. But I've updated it to the new style coil packs, and I've also done ICM delete to run these coil packs. So that's what I've done on this. There is a 10-pin plug, which you need the other side of the 10-pin plug, and that connects to the Mark 1 loom, only for a couple wires, but then the others are like a ground and live. This is my Mark 1 loom, and there is so much labelled up on it, and this has took hours to figure out what everything else is. I'll put the links in the description. This is where the main work begins. This is the other side of the AGU loom, and in a Mark 4 Golf, it's flipped. Those plugs there go on that side, but it's a pain because I've got to take everything apart because everything is the wrong way around. This side this is the only plug I need. This is the lambda sensor. That's fine, that'll reach. This is something I'll cut off, so that doesn't matter. The N80 valve for the charcoal canister. But then you get to this side and you've got the MAF sensor, and there's no way that's going to reach. So I've got to take it all apart, but there's a lot of wires on this it can take off, like the outside air temp sensor, don't need that. The starter motor is going to be used on the original loom, so I don't need that. And then I've got the power steering sensor, which I don't need, so I can take that out as well. And the N80 canister. There's a lot you can take out on this loom, so it'll end up being quite a light loom anyway. Okay, now I've chopped everything out, there's a whole lot less. So I've got the lambda sensor, I've got that. And I've got the MAF sensor, and this is the fuel pump live, which used to be the power steering pump sensor. So keep that, it's a blue and yellow wire. Need to keep that. I've also kept the ECU ground. I mean, I couldn't get rid of that, so I've kept that. There's also some wires here that you can cut back to the ECU plug, as well as wires in the loom, which you can cut back to the ECU plug. And then I started chopping. It does feel a bit overwhelming at first, but once you start following the guide and referencing and labelling, it does get a whole lot easier. I actually feel a lot more confident now that I've removed lots and lots of wires from this loom and the Mark 1 loom. So this is where I'm at so far with the original Mark 1 engine loom. I've started taking it down and stripping bits, chopping bits off. So the bits that you need are your windscreen wiper motor. Don't touch that at all, leave it as it is. This one here is actually a red and black wire, but someone's set it to green. Is your starter motor, so leave that. I'm also keeping my original oil sensors. This is optional. You can have the Mark IV ones, but I've decided to leave these. Less wiring for me to do. I'm not sure what this one is, red and white, but I'm just going to leave it for now. It's not actually part of the white plug, so I'm just going to leave it, as well as this one here, which is black and green. I'm just leaving it. I don't know what that is, but it is separate to the plug. It's really hard to see, so you probably won't see this on here, but over this little bit here, they are numbered, and this is what you've got to reference. Don't necessarily go off what colour wires they are, because they're all slightly changed between Mark IV and Mark 1. So don't necessarily go off that. You need to go off the numbers that are on here. There's a couple of important ones. We've got the D7 for ignition, which is live speed. We've got a spare D2 and a D13 for the fuel pump relay earth trigger. There is some that you wire into the 10-pin or 14-pin plug, depending what you have. They're both the same, so if you have a 14-pin or a 10-pin, that's fine. There's no more wires. This 10 pin is from a really early AGU engine, and that's why I'm using it. If you have a 10 pin and you don't have this connector, you can get them off a Mark IV Golf headlight loom. You can just cut it off. This is actually from the headlight loom. Again, you relate to the numbers. It's all the same on the guide. The only two wires that actually go in to this plug are the D2 ignition live speed sensor and the D29 coolant sensor for the dash. I'm going to strip this down a little bit further, and then I'm going to try and put the Mark IV loom and the Mark I loom together. Okay, here we are. This is the first mock-up for the 1.8 turbo loom. I'm going to go over a couple of things with you. I can't tell you it all because it's really complicated, but I will show you the guides online. So the first thing is your oil sensors you can use from the original Mark I CE1 loom. You can also use the Mark IV one, but I chose to use the original Mark I sensors. You can use the original starter motor loom as well, so I've used that. This is for the alternator. It's the blue wire from the alternator. As you can see, I've only got the blue one running. That's the blue one's the only one wired up at the moment. That's the only one used at the Mark I. And I've put this in pin, I think it's D4. You see this white plug, they're all labelled up on here. If you look very closely, you won't see in the video, but they're all labelled up to show which goes where and what does what. So this one is here, D4. It's empty and I've wired it up. The original one is on this loom here, which is your headlight loom, and you can take it out of your headlight loom because you don't need it. And I believe that is D2. This blue wire here, this blue wire is the alternator. It's the exciter to tell that the car's on to get the alternator charging. The blue wire here you don't need. You can take that out. I've left it in. I'm not using it, and I've put it in the part of the engine loom. There's a couple of things you keep on the old Mark IV loom. The lambda sensor is one of them. Without that, the car would run terrible. And the MAF sensor. As I remember, these are the only two sensors I've actually kept from the Mark IV loom. And I've left and took the rest out. I have kept the power steering pump sensor wire because that's like a permanent live or a live. I've not actually used that yet, but I might use it later, so I've kept it in. You keep a couple things from the Mark I loom. So this one here, this one is for your window wipers. Definitely need that, so don't chop that off. A couple of these are grounds and a couple of these go straight to spade connectors on the fuse box. I'm going to leave this for you to have a look on the website that I'm going to post up because this is quite complicated and you need to have a good read through. It's hard to show you all in one video. A lot of looms will also have a relay here. This wiring loom, turns out it wasn't a GTI wiring loom, it was for a carb. So originally I ended up cutting this off, which was a problem because I needed it and I thought I didn't need it. So I've rewired this back in, and now this one is the fuel pump / ECU relay. I'm using it as an ECU relay though. The guide also talks about power to relay 87, and at first I thought that was a whole relay, but it isn't. It's just on the back of here. So if you can see the top one, 87 here, that's the power for the ECU. There's two thicker cables as well that you can wire in, which is for the fuel pump live and the ECU live, and they both go to spade connector P, which is on the fuse box. It's right here. Again, I'm going to post up the pictures for the fuse box wiring diagram and all the links I've used because it's hard to understand from a video. But these are a 15 amp fuse in both of these as well, because they don't originally run there. You can also wire up the OBD port. I'm using this for VCDS. It's really simple to wire up. There is literally one wire, which is VCDS port 7 orange 1. It's a grey and white wire. It's the only bit you need to solder up. The rest goes to a ground, and the other wire is spade P again for permanent live. But it's very handy, you know, because I'm probably going to have a lot of error codes come up and a lot of stuff that I need to cancel or have taken out. If you want to remap it, there's more wires you need to put in, but for now, just for reading and diagnosing what's wrong with the car, that is all you need. So this one here, there's a couple of wires going to the P spade connector. You could also connect a lot of these these 3 wires to E14, but at this moment I don't have the correct pin to pin it into the E14 plug. So I'm going to try with the P-spade connector straight into the fuse box and see if we can get any signs of life, but we shall see. You should have something like this at the beginning with the Mark IV loom plug or similar, which you'll need to chop these off. But I found, this is for another conversion that I might be doing later, the blue plug. This plug alone is just for the drive-by-wire cable, so you don't actually need to chop this at all. You literally just plug that into the pedal and apparently it should work. I've cut so much wire from all these looms as well, I just thought it'd be worth showing you. There is tons and tons and tons you need to chop out. So I was quite naive. I thought, oh, a couple of little cuts of wire here and there, but no, it is in fact a lot of wire. So just make sure you read over and over and over again until it makes sense. If you're using an AGU loom with a BAM inlet, the plug for the air temperature sensor and the plug for the throttle body won't reach because they're attached to the fuel rail. So you need to pick those apart and move them across to the right so they fit, because there's no chance they'll fit if not. Okay, so this is what it looks like currently. I've plugged everything in and I've got some good news. It looks a bit terrible in here, but what I'll show you next I'm really pleased about. Now there's still some grounding issues to sort out, but if I put the key in, I've got ignition. The switches, they work. My hazards, they work. All of these switches, they work. I'm pleased, but that's not the best bit. So I've wired up the OBD port as well, and if I just show you this on VCDS, it works. It literally reads the fault codes, and there is a lot. Now I've not actually deleted these. Some of these could be from the old ECU, but it just shows that the OBD port is working. One problem I have found though is the ignition wire. If you can see down here, if I attach that to the starter motor, it just starts and the key's not in. This is something I need to sort out soon. Hopefully I've just gone wrong with the ground. This black plug here is the E plug for the fuse board, and you might not need to do anything to it, but I do need to do something to it because this was from a non-injection engine. It manages the rear lights and it manages the fuel pump. Some of them are 2-pen. I'm guessing this is maybe for a carb engine. It's E14, so it's this thick black one here, and this wire goes in it here. This is for the fuel pump. It is the power for the fuel pump because the GTIs have an in-tank fuel pump. And because that wasn't fitted to the loom, I've got these to fit. This is a special little pin that I can add that into the plug. They're in 2 different sizes. That's the big one and this is the small one, which I've also used for the other plug to make my wiring loom. You'll need these These are from, I think it's Obsolete UK. I'll put a link in the description. For a bag of these, it's £4.50 off their website, and it's so handy. Saves you doing this to the wire and pushing it into the plug, because that is a bodge. The E14 pin is alive. On some of the wiring diagrams, the E14 pin, you can also have little spades coming out of that for other sources of power. For me, what I'm going to use, I'm going to put another plug in there for the external high pressure fuel pump, because mine is missing. I'm going to be adding that later. It's simple for this, it's just a positive and a negative, and the positive I'm going to run from the E14 plug, and the negative I'm going to earth to the body. You can also use the E14 plug, put some spades on it for part of the engine wiring loom, but I've just added this all to spade N instead, and I've fused it as well. This you don't need to fuse, if I remember correctly, as it runs through a fuse anyway and a relay. So here's my pin done. I've added 2 more power. I've added one for the high pressure fuel pump, which is a red one, and the blue one is just an extra if I need it later. If I need to change anything from my wiring loom plug, I can just plug it in here and it's all done, it's all adapted. And there you go, it's in. That's all you have to do for this wiring loom. Some of you might not need to do anything at all. So I had an injector problem and I couldn't get the car to start. What you do is you test the continuity. So you'd put one pin on the positive, I believe, and then the next pin on the ground, and you can see I'm only getting 5.1 volts. I test the other side and I get absolutely nothing. Now, this was stopping me from starting. I'd have fuel to the rail, really strong fuel pressure, because I've hit the high pressure fuel pump and the in-tank pump that was already there, but I'd only get 5.1 volts. Now on the guide it says this plug here, your T10A, it says pin 5 was for diesels, or I read it as for diesels, which is this one here. Let's just attach this here. So now I've quickly connected pin 5 straight to 12 volts, and the difference is great. So if I just attach this to the pin, so if I attach this pin here and then touch it on the ground, I've still got 5.1 volts, which is the same, but if I attach it to the other pin and then touch the ground, I've got 12.3 volts, which is the same as the battery. It's a little bit flat, so it might need to charge before I start it, but now I'm certain the injectors are going to start because I've got proper voltage to them. This seems to be a really common thing, that the injectors don't work for different reasons. Mine was because I read the sheet wrong. So T10A pin 5, you put that to 12 volts, or spade N. I might put it to E14 plug because I've got a spare spade. So I'll try and see if that works first and see if I get 12 volts to that. And now, touch wood, the engine should start. The guide works. I can't tell you how pleased I am with that. That is awesome. Special thanks to the guy that created the guide, Rub Johnny. It's awesome. It works. Like, this is the first wiring guide I've ever done I admit I don't even understand wiring guides, but this is really friendly. It's complicated, but it's really friendly because it gets you started and the car runs. It runs like a bag of bolts right now because the intercooler's not connected. These AGU engines really rely on the airflow. If they don't have an intercooler or a little pinhole in the system, then they run like crap. This needs to have an intercooler now. I need to get the coolant piping lined up, but the car runs. So now I can tidy this absolute rat nest up because the car runs, I know it fires up, I know it doesn't cut out, well, cut out straight away. But now I'm going to tidy this up. Yeah, focus on more about neatening this up and going for the first drive. So check that guide out. It is so helpful. Like, it's the only guide I've looked at. I'll put the link in the description. If Rub Johnny is watching this, thank you so much. I've never met the guy. I've just read his posts, and I've read a lot of them. You see on the forums, every post that someone needs help, he's the guy that's commenting. So please check him out. I'm pretty sure, you know, if you're doing engine conversions, you've probably heard of him anyway. But yeah, I can't thank him enough. He's saved me like £300, £400 on getting the engine conversion loop done.
The first thing I started with was the intercooler and the radiator setup. Where the intercooler is currently sitting, there's normally some little bits of support there, but this has previously had an intercooler and a 1.8 turbo conversion done, so these were already cut out. I don't know if you have to cut these out, I don't know if it's necessary, but they were already cut out, and for now I leaned the intercooler up against that, but actually later on don't do that. I bolt them in place, so you might not actually need to cut those inserts out.
Okay, now for the main bit, the intercooler setup. So this BAM charge pipe is 2.25 inch diameter, but it goes to a 2.5 inch diameter. The intercooler is also 2.5 inch, which goes all the way around to this, which I believe this again is 2.25 inch. But you can get a little reducer or just put a 2.5 on and then tighten it down. That's what I did anyway. I mean, there's no room for it to come off. It's quite on there. So I used 2.5 and 90 degrees 2.5. Then I used 180 degrees 2.5, but I had to bend it a little bit. And 90 degrees 2.5, then another 90 degrees 2.5, and it looks quite tight in there. But the radiator does fit, and I'll show the radiator in a second. This Mark 1 already had it cut, but these have been cut here where the headlight is. You also have a little bracket here, I believe, which has been cut, so I can't put any weight on this. That was already cut by somebody else. But a nice little intercooler fits in there really snug, and there's a lot of room for a radiator and a slimline fan. The radiator is held in place by that and that bolt there.
So in the last video I got the car up and running, but I made a bit of a mistake with the ignition control module delete, so I thought we could listen to the car running properly this time instead of it firing on one cylinder. More sounds at the end.
This video is not like the others because I've had to fabricate things and design things myself, so let me show you what I've done. So the first thing is I've tried to tidy up this rat's nest. It's a bit cleaner, it's looking a bit better, but most of the wiring now is in here. So the ECU and all the sensors, they're all in here, and that's what it looks like on top. It's made out of an old wing, it's pretty crude, but it keeps the water off it, so I don't really care. Now the battery tray is just the standard universal tray. I didn't have a battery tray there before. If you're doing a Mark 1 conversion, you're probably going to have a battery tray there, so this one doesn't really matter, but I've showed it anyway because it's something I've done. I was finding it hard to find a coolant bottle to fit, so this is a Volvo coolant bottle from an XC90. This is just a generic 1.5 litre washer bottle. The XC90 coolant bottle is perfect because it's got a return line that goes all the way to here, and also the main coolant line is just down there, and you can pull it out and you can see it just goes to the factory coolant line on 1.8 turbo. I had to make a little bracket so it would fit
Let me show you. It just sits right in here. This is made from an old bit of sill that I had lying around. So if you need a coolant bottle for your 20 valve and the VW ones won't fit, you can use the XC91. It fits perfectly in that place. The 1.5 litre washer bottle also fits perfectly. It's a bit close to the light bulb, but you could just pull it out if you need to change your light bulb, and it's just held in by a little bracket there. The Mark ones normally have a coolant bottle here if it's a GTI, but mine again was missing, so I had to improvise and buy a cheap one. This was £8 on eBay. That was £5 from my breakers. Okay, so this is a radiator. It's really worn and tatty. It's from a 1.8 Mark III Golf. The reason it's tatty is because I don't want to buy one when I don't know what's going to fit. So rough and ready to go, but it does hold water. It's just for testing for now. This is from a transporter, and that's just from a Mark IV Golf. A lot of the coolant hoses I've been using are from a Mark IV Golf. So if you buy Mark IV Golf, you've already got most of your coolant pipes as well. The radiator fits in like so. I'm going to have a bracket there and there to hold it in place, and same from there to there to hold the radiator in place. You know, everything is in place. There's room for a slimline fan. Here we go. Here's the fan as well. This one is a 9-inch fan, and it's just a universal one off eBay. This cost me about 12 quid. There's little cables you put through the radiator, and then you stick them on the other side, and it keeps it in place. Nice, easy, cheap slimline fan. This one's a 9-inch. I reckon I should have gone with 12-inch, but this is something for me to replace later, as it is quite tiny. It might not give the correct cooling, but it's just an idea of the mocking things up, because this radiator is very worn, as you can see. This does need to go. And if anyone's going to say in the comments, yes, this radiator's upside down, it should be flipped, but in terms of getting the correct coolant hose into the right place, this did work. And to test for now, it's okay to test if it all works. If you're wondering how the fan relay works, now this is a Mark III Golf fan relay, and it's attached to the Mark III Golf plug. Okay, then I've got this red wire here, which is pin out number 2 on the plug. It should just be a solid red wire. That's tied to an inline fuse, which is 30 amp, which then runs all the way to the battery positive. You got the battery negative, and the battery negative goes to the universal fan negative, and then you've got the positive for the universal fan, and that goes into the red and white wire, which I believe is pin number 1. That basically triggers this relay. Once that clicks over to a certain temperature, it then triggers the fan to kick in. And to show you now, if I get this bit of wire here, if I take this relay out, and then I can bridge it with this bit of wire, you can see that the fan should kick in. Again, you can hear the fan working. Just make sure you get the negative and the positive going to the correct place, because if not, the fan will work still. It will just be pushing air back into the radiator. Instead of sucking warm air in, it's going to take all the heat from the engine, it's going to push into your radiator, so it won't be cooling anything down. But now I know this works, it can go back on, and I'm going to test to tape this all up so it looks nice and tidy.
In previous videos I got this car as a shell, and I'm just happy to get the electrics working because I know nothing of C1 electrics before I got this car.
I've also gone with a nice big carbon fibre air filter, and it's a cold air feed as well, so it's going all the way from the grill, which is where the fog light would have been, but now I've got a single slack grill, so it just gets the cold feed from there, goes all the way in there, which is great because I didn't just want to plonk a cone filter on here because it's going to get loads of heat from the engines. These 20 valve turbos run really hot. The turbos run quite hot, so it's good that you have a cool air feed for these engines, as of any engine really. When I got this Mark 1 20 valve, it didn't have the bonnet latch. It didn't have the bottom bit, it didn't have the top bit either, but this all fits because some people have a big intercooler and it sits right at the top, and people cut this top bit here to get it to fit, but I've got a bit of a smaller intercooler. I might need a big one in the future, I'm not decided yet, but for now it will fit, and I didn't want to keep using these pins because there's no security really. If someone wanted something from this car, they could just go undo those pins and then they could get anything in my engine they wanted. It's a bit hard to tell, but there you go, you can see the bonnet latch is sitting just above the intercooler. For now I have to put my finger in and go lift the bonnet up. I mean, it's a great way if your bonnet cable breaks as well.
So here we go, the finished product. I'd like to think this was everything you'd need in a 1.8 turbo conversion. I think for me, all the main stuff is done now, and the car's up and running, it moves under its own power.
it's got boost, it's got pretty much everything. I just need to add coolant now and finish off some little tiny bits. For now, I'll leave you with some last videos I got of the car. It's moving, it moves through its own power. I'm very pleased. So this pretty much wraps up this video. Everything is in now, all the important bits are in. For me, it's just fine tuning all those little electrical gremlins and making sure it doesn't leak anywhere, making sure I've got no fuel leaks, and just giving it a bit of a stress test. But I'm always happy to help. If you've got any problems, just put them in the comments below. I'm happy to help, because this has been quite a bit of a jigsaw for me. I've had to guess and put a lot of things together that I wasn't sure if it was going to fit or not, and I've had to mishmash a load of parts. This car is very much a Frankenstein, because if you watched the first video, this was just a bare engine. I've had to source everything else. So again, if you've got any questions, let me know, but these engines are great. You can very much Frankenstein parts together from Cupras, Mark IV Golfs, GTIs, Audis, Audi TTs, S3s, you name it. Anyway, good luck with your build.